If water can't help your plant perk up, then it may be experiencing a plant disease known as wilt. Wilt is a type of disease that affects the vascular system of a plant. Essentially, the plant's vascular system is in charge of transporting liquid and gas throughout the plant. The xylem is the vascular tissue in plants. It conducts water and dissolved nutrients from roots to the leaves. The phloem, on the other hand, moves glucose from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Today I'll be talking to you about a type of wilt called bacterial wilt. The organism responsible for bacterial wilt is Erwinia tracheiphila. It is a pathogenic fungi species, meaning that it is responsible for causing disease. If you looked at this organism with a microscope, it would have an irregular shape with a green color and white spots. Bacterial wilt is one of the major diseases for tomatoes. It also affects eggplants, potatoes, mandrakes, jimson weeds, tobacco, and Petunia solanaceous plants, including Petunia, datura, and mandragora. Now I'm going to talk about the how component. So first of all, how does this disease transmit? Firstly, this transmission starts off with an infected plant. Then, there are two organisms that are actually responsible for the spreading of this disease. They are known as striped cucumber beetles and spotted cucumber beetles. When these two beetles feed off of the infected plants, they carry this bacteria in their digestive tracts. Finally, this disease may spread to plants through feeding wounds from infected mouthparts or frass, which is basically just a natural form of compost. Next, let's analyze the what component. So, what exactly are the symptoms of this disease? So, the first stage is a dull green wilt during the day. There will be dull green patches on the leaves as the bacterial wilt infection develops. Then, as time passes, the vascular tissue becomes blocked with bacteria. As a result, some parts of the leaf are going to become yellow. When enough time passes, the runners and eventually the entire plant become blocked with bacteria. They will wilt, turn yellow, and eventually die. Now we'll take a look at the second how component. So how can you prevent this disease? Firstly, try to regularly rotate your plant. Another thing that would help is installing raised beds. Moreover, try to evenly space out your plants on a regular basis because this will help to improve the air circulation for your plant. Testing your soil is also very beneficial. If you are growing vegetables, aim for a pH level of 6.2 to 6.5. Finally, ensure that you wash your hands after handling potentially infected plants. If it's too late and one of your plants already has this disease, let's talk about how you can treat it. As I previously mentioned, beetles are the main cause of this spread. Try to manage them if you can. If your plant shows any early symptoms that I mentioned earlier, bury the infected plant. This will help to avoid further spread to your healthy plant. Now I'll discuss the impacts that this disease has on a society. My inquiry question is highly related to this piece of information, so now I'm going to introduce it. It's important to note that in 2019, Canada was the 6th largest tomato exporter worldwide, with a dollar value of $379.2 million. As I mentioned previously, bacterial wilt is very popular in tomatoes. So how would this affect a society, let alone Canada? Since bacterial wilt is very common within a lot of plants, there would be less good plants for a society's needs. These needs include food for the citizens, income for farmers, and even contributions to the country's gross domestic product, which is GDP. GDP is the value of all goods and services produced within a year. Additionally, these affected plants would affect farmers' incomes. Therefore, there would be less money for their basic needs. For example, there would be less money for them to support their family. If this disease affected the exports of certain plant products, then the country's GDP would decrease. If there's a decrease in GDP, then there will be an increase in unemployment rate and an increase in the prices of products. If the impact is large enough, then the export to import ratio may become imbalanced. A good economy wants the two to be around equilibrium. So with all that information being said, let's go back to the original inquiry question. If bacterial wilt had an effect on Canada's tomatoes exports, there would firstly be a decrease in one of their main exports. Therefore, there would be less income for their farmers, and a decrease in gross domestic product. A decrease in GDP means that there's an increase in unemployment rate and an increase in the prices of products. Finally, the exports to imports ratio would become imbalanced.